Thank you. Thank you for the organizers for having me here. And I'm going to basically give a kind of a report of work in progress, building on earlier work. So this is a image of my lab. I direct a research lab focused on visualization, and we concentrate on some of things that intersect data, visualization, photography, training, robotic cameras, and presenting these works in both engineering and fine art contexts. So the program I teach in is called Media Arts and Technology. And we have faculty from computer science, signal processing, electronic music composition, I'm an artist, and virtual architecture. So the work that I've been doing since the 1980s, and you'll see a kind of chart in a minute, has been based on computing, writing computer code, defined by rule-based methods. All of a sudden, two years ago, we are faced with a situation of generative AI image synthesis, where the system determines what kind of images it produces based on text and image prompt. So big change and shift, similar to possibly the shift from photography to computing that took place maybe 35 years ago. So this is my very first major project that I did in northern Canada. I was 23 years old. I was invited to come and photograph a community of indigenous people who were fighting the government over their land being flooded, an area the size of England. So the top section shows the transition in my work from documentary photography to conceptual photography. Around 1981, I met the painter Harold Cohn, who just had a show at the Gazzelli Art House. Harold, after a 5-minute conversation, gave me a key to his studio, and so I was very fortunate to have access to mainframe computing. And at the bottom, I kind of sketched out some of the kind of key transitions of technologies, and I had to wait about 5 years before I could implement computing to a photographic practice. So the problem statement with generative AI image synthesis is to what degree the input, image or text, can result in outcomes that align with the image maker's intentions. And the work that I'm doing with my students, who are mostly computer science students in my lab, so we're trying to we're in the process of designing a feedback model for stable diffusion to evaluate to what degree the outcome of what stable diffusion will give me is interesting, and this process will then try to tune what stable diffusion can deliver. So this kind of connects with my artistic practice, and I'm going to read this, which has emerged out of a consideration that technological processes leave an imprint, and therefore the meaning of an image to a great degree is a consequence of its construction through the technologies used. So now I'm going to jump back to my, whoops. Too fast. This thing has a life of its own. Okay. My graduate work from 1976, I was coming out of the tradition of formalist photography. These are 35 millimeter photographs where I was exploring the relationship of noise to order without any real knowledge at the time about Claude Shannon's information theory. And one of the key components of doing this kind of work is that it involves a set of explorations of, I guess, the syntax of photography. How does one organize an image out using visual elements out in the world? So this is a kind of list of some of the primitives, let's say, of image making, pre-computing. And here I kind of introduce a concept called effective complexity, which is a kind of play between noise to signal or order and disorder. And at the time, with the street photography type aesthetic, the key thing was how do you come up with interesting image constructions, for lack of a better definition. So about 5 years ago, we were in my lab, in my courses, we were looking at the various technologies available to us, such as machine learning. And this work is a test trying to use some of the images from my Masters of Fine Arts images to be fed into software titled Neural Texture Synthesis. And at the time, we had style transfer, we had GANs, generative, I forget what GAN stands for, generative, thank you very much. And this gives you an example of what I could do at the time. The image on the left is a result of 10 iterations, and the image on the right of 100. So generative art, and I'm quoting Philip Gallender here, refers to any art practice where the artist uses a system such as a set of natural language rules, a computer program, a machine, or other procedural invention which is set into motion with some degree of autonomy, contributing to or resulting in a completed work of art. And so the first software that I began to look at when it came out 2 years ago in the late summer, early fall of 2022 was MidJourney. And one of the big challenges with MidJourney is that the creators promised that it would kind of give you something that would have good aesthetic results. And so the big challenge was how to fight that particular aesthetic that MidJourney would impose. And so the first project that I was happy with after much testing was a series titled Alchemist Study. And it was initiated by those 3 words: imaginary, workspaces, electrostatic. This is kind of a screenshot of the MidJourney interface version 3. You can see there November 2022, where you would type in a phrase and it would give you 4 images, and then you would have the option of either upscaling the results or get 4 different new variations. And then out of those, you would pick one and it would then give you 4. So after about hundreds of interactions, I came up with a series that I felt was interesting. And these are going to be exhibited next fall in Los Angeles. And what's of interest here in the whole series that I have, and I have about 60 or 70 of these, is the kind of narrative construction that MidJourney gave me. So basically, what we have here is some elements that stay the same and some elements that shift. So each image has this kind of off-center composition of corner with a what seems like a window in the background, but that there's a certain amount of confusion between what is inside and what is outside. It doesn't quite know, and sometimes it respects the relationship of outside to inside, and sometimes it kind of gets confused, and other times it kind of gives a result of opaqueness. So the interesting thing for me was the question of to what degree is this photographic, and can I push the photographic in a direction that it would not be photographic? And the next series that I came up with is titled Abstraction Studies, which did start out as a set of photographs, but through iterations, extensive iterations, I managed to kind of push it towards abstraction. Here's an example of just one of those images, excuse me, where you can kind of see the systematic relationships and the way that something stays the same but with slightly shifting elements. And all of these images have a kind of coherence that was maintained. So then the big question for me was, how am I going to present these in an exhibition situation, given the low resolution of the image itself? And so I kind of did some studies and came up with the idea of creating these through weaving them as tapestries, trying to take something that's intangible, the digital image, turn it into a material form. And then, so these are produced in Flanders, Belgium, in a small town, where the first thing was to try to do a lot of studies about to what degree, what 12 yarns I could use to create an image made up of 256 gray tones. And as you can see, hopefully, there's a certain amount of depth relationship between those different tones. So it's not really a flat surface, but a kind of three-dimensional material result. I'm going to jump now to challenges in stable diffusion. So this is the stable diffusion that we're using in my lab. It's called, the interface is called Automatic 1111. The large image is the source image, and the smaller image is the result. And one of the things that I've been testing was to start with an abstract image. This is a photograph of a wall with some paint texture, and trying to see to what degree I could control a result that would be similar to the original. And as I don't know if you can see here, but my results were continuously being kind of reimagined by the software. So the smaller pictures do not meet the criteria that I was trying to get in with the original image itself. This is another study of, and you can't really read the source. So my text prompt says an irregular, complex, cluttered robotic machine made of translucent light placed in an enclosed lab space, viewed sideways. And my negative prompt says symmetry, forward perspective, cabinets. So in other words, I didn't want those three things. And the large image, the first one, I think it took me about 20 iterations to get to an image that I could use. And then it kind of led to these other examples. Now the next slide here shows you a sequence from beginning to end. And I'm showing you the first image, I'm showing you the last image, and a couple of in-between images. And then out of the 30, I have a selection of 20 here that kind of gives you the transition. And what's interesting about the transition is the shifting narrative from an office space, a kind of, lab space, towards something that begins to look like some kind of bio-robotic machine. So the software itself imposed this kind of push towards a particular topic that I particularly was not that interested in. How am I doing time-wise? Two more minutes. Okay. So basically, some questions, challenges. Digital data today is a language-based process, including images as they rely on textual descriptions. Current training data, as I tried to suggest, is not reliable. Much of the training data comes from the internet. It's been collected. It's not been curated. And so the big challenge for, let's say, for an artistic practice would be to try to curate the training set, which could be done in kind of a partial way, but not in a complete way, because it requires a tremendous computing power. And with that, I'll stop.